There are so many moments in UFC history that if they just went a little differently, the entire sport we would look at today would be basically unrecognizable right now. I wanted to go through the top 10 what ifs in UFC history, not like the what if Zabit stayed, what if Khabib stayed. Like I'm trying to spice it up a little bit, you know what I mean? So Tony has died. We'll be breaking down the top 10 what ifs in UFC history. If you like the video, like, subscribe, do all that YouTube shit. Let's jump straight into it with my first what if, which is, what if Conor McGregor never fought Floyd Mayweather? What if Conor decided to try and defend his belt instead of go to boxing and make his money? What if Conor never became as rich as he became? Because that's kind of what ended up destroying Conor in the end. And we have the terrible version of Conor that we have in 2025. We look at all the problems with Conor and it's just like he doesn't have that drive or hunger anymore because of how famous he got. The reason he got so famous and so rich was because of this fight with Floyd Mayweather. So what would have happened if Conor never fought Floyd? Who would he have defended his first lightweight belt against? Yeah, so if Conor never fought Floyd, it's very likely that his first title defense would have either been against Khabib or been against Tony Ferguson. And so that's also another what if. It's like, what if Conor and Tony fought each other? Tony's got pretty good grappling, but he's very hittable. So would Conor have been able to put the lights out on Tony early? We will never know. So I feel like this is a major divergent in the timeline, is him going inactive for 2 years. Really, when he came back to fight Khabib, which is also one of his biggest fights in his career, when he came back and fought Khabib, he was in that boxing stance. He wasn't in his classic karate Conor stance. Would he have won the fight with Khabib if he had his other stance and he didn't take that time off to go box? The world may never know. So let's get on to the next one, which is, what if Dustin Poirier fought Michael Chandler for the belt instead of Oliveira? So there was a time during COVID where Dustin Poirier was offered the title fight after he beat Conor the first time. They said, do you want the title fight? He's like, nah, I want the Conor rematch, because of how much money was involved in it. The question is, like, could Dustin have won the belt, have been the undisputed champion? Because, you know, when you think of Dustin Poirier, he's the greatest fighter to never become the undisputed UFC champion. And he had his opportunity to become the champion, and he passed it up for the Conor fights. So it's really interesting to think about, would Dustin have become champ if he took that opportunity back then? We'll never know. Yeah, would Dustin have became champ if he fought Michael Chandler back then? Because, you know, the Michael Chandler that fought Oliveira and fought Patty, not the same Michael Chandler that beat Hooker. We know that Dustin's not on Oliveira's level. Could Chandler have been on Dustin's level back then? So that's the question. What would have happened if Dustin and Chandler fought each other back in 2020? Next one, I feel like this is a pretty obvious one, but what would have happened if Fedor ever came to the UFC? Fedor always had his problems with Dana White. There is rumors that he was connected to the Russian mob, and that's why he couldn't join the UFC, because he basically was in ties with some shady organizations over there. He went and fought for Bellator his entire career. Kind of seen as a waste of talent. So anytime you're talking about the heavyweight GOAT conversation, some old head will always bring up Fedor. He kind of disqualified himself from talks of being in the GOAT conversation, since he never fought in the UFC. Although he fought in Pride for so long, and that was the best of the best back then. What would have happened if Fedor fought some of these people like Stipe? Or what if Fedor fought Ngannou? What if Fedor fought any of these fucking great heavyweights? I don't know if he fought Cain Velasquez. What if he fought Cain Velasquez? What if he fought Frank Mir? What if he fought DC? We'll never know. These are all names that Fedor is missing from his resume and could have fought. People always talk about Fedor like he's the second coming of Jesus Christ. Well, we'll never know if he was the second coming of Jesus Christ, because he never fought in the UFC. So, yep, what would have happened if Fedor fought in the UFC prime for prime? Next what if on our list is, what if Leon Edwards never landed that head kick on Kamaru Usman? I feel like this is the biggest what if of all time, because when we talk about Kamaru Usman, people forget, man, prime Kamaru Usman he was about to dethrone GSP as the GOAT. Dude, I remember back when this fight was building up, Dana White was talking about Usman like he was the welterweight GOAT already. One fight, one round. If Kamaru Usman survived one more round, we would probably have this motherfucker in our top 5 fighters of all time. He would have tied Anderson Silva's win streak. But because he got head kicked, he had to take a bunch of time off as well. We could have Usman as a top 5, top 3, even the greatest fighter of all time if this head kick never landed. He got to defend his title a couple more times against some people at welterweight, but we'll never know because that headshot dead landed. Fuck you, Leon. You ruined the timeline. Alright, next what if on the list, we got what if Chael Sonnen defeated Anderson Silva. When we talk about the GOAT list, it's always John Jones, Mighty Mouse, GSP, Anderson Silva. You gotta have those top 4. If you don't put those top 4, you're casual. But if you think about this fight, Chael Sonnen dominated for 4.5 rounds of this fight, and then he got caught in the triangle. My question is, if Chael Sonnen won, would he have defended his title? Would we consider Chael Sonnen? You know, I beat Anderson. I didn't know if you tapped it counted. I thought if you tapped, you lost the round. You know, would we consider Chael to be one of the all-time greats for beating Anderson? Probably not, because Anderson would have only been on like a 12, 13 fight streak at this point. What would we consider? Like, we would definitely wouldn't have Anderson Silva in the greatest. Like, I feel like we'd have Adesanya over Silva for sure. Who knows how the timeline would turn out if Chael beat fucking Anderson Silva, because we don't even know if Adesanya would have ever came champ. Yeah, this one's a pretty big what if. Silva absolutely destroyed Chael in the rematch. It was an off night. You could just say that if Silva lost, he would have got his automatic rematch and then just destroyed Chael like he did in the regular timeline, but we probably wouldn't hold Anderson Silva to the how high we hold him on the GOAT list. Let's move on to another one. This is a pretty major one. What if Oliveira's training partner never cut him for UFC 294? So Oliveira receives a nasty cut in sparring and has to pull out of the fight. Mateusz Gamrot is the backup fighter, but the UFC doesn't give a fuck because Gamrot versus Islam has literally zero hype to it whatsoever. The UFC replaces Gamrot as the backup fighter and replaces Oliveira on the fight with Alexander Volkanovski on 2 weeks' notice. Volkanovski had already had a previous very close fight with Islam Makhachev, and a lot of people actually thought that Volk won that fight and were wanting to see a rematch. But when we said we wanted to see a rematch, we wanted to see Volk at his best. Volk was literally on like some party cruise when Dana White called him and was like, "Hey buddy, you're fighting for the belt, alright? Stop drinking whatever fucking Latin drink you're drinking. Tighten up them bootstraps. Get back in camp. You're about to go fight the greatest fighter of all time. Alright, buddy?" So Volk fucking trots out there, fat Volk, and just gets fucking head kicked and destroyed. Volk goes back down and gets chinned by Ilia Topuria. What would have happened if Oliveira's training partner low-key needs to be executed for this shit, bro. We Volk fans saw the downfall of Volk, and it was all Oliveira's training partner's fault for cutting him. Why is he going to war that close to fucking, like, literally a day, like 2 weeks out? Why are y'all going that hard in sparring, you know? Dude, I swear to God, what if it was Ian Gary, bro? Never thought about that theory. What if it was Ian Gary who cut him? That would just make me hate him even more. The question is, what would have happened if Oliveira never got cut? You know, would Topuria have knocked out Volk coming off a knockout? We will never know. So the next what if on this list is, what would happen if John Jones immediately went up after the Reyes fight and fought, that's right, Francis Ngannou? Now, when people talk about John Jones being a duck, they typically just talk about the Tom Aspinall ducking situation, but real ones remember that the original John Jones duck was of Francis Ngannou. As soon as Francis Ngannou vacated the belt, John Jones immediately comes back to the sport of MMA. This cannot simply be a coincidence. Real ones remember the original duck that John Jones had over Francis Ngannou. He was scared to his death to fight Ngannou. So what would have happened? We will never know. That's kind of how it goes with this fucking list. That's why it's called a what if. Honestly, I think that Jones most likely probably would have just taken Ngannou down, play with him on the ground a bit, but as we've seen recently with his Renan Ferreira fight and even the Cyril Gane fight, Ngannou has developed a ground game that we've never seen in, you know, when Ngannou and Jones fought the first time. So would Ngannou have had that ground game for the Jones fight? Probably not, but I think, you know, Ngannou definitely had, like, Jones has never been dropped before except for that Reyes one time where he hurt him pretty badly. Jones has never been dropped. Would Ngannou have the power to put Jones out? I say yes. So if Ngannou connected on Jones's chin, I think it would have been lights out for Jones. This fight definitely would have had a lot more hype than the Cyril Gane fight and the Stipe fight. I honestly think this fight, at the time that it could have happened, it would have been the biggest fight to make. But unfortunately, Jon Jones is a duck, as we know. In his later career, why would I risk my fucking belt for that? Why would I risk my legacy? Because you're the fucking champ, dude. But fuck you, Jon Jones, for ducking Ngannou. We'll never see this fight ever. It's crazy. We got Tom Aspinall, Francis Ngannou, and Jon Jones, and they'll probably all... Those are the 3 best heavyweights, and they'll probably never ever see them fight each other ever. So, truth is the truth. Jon Jones versus Francis Ngannou. We'll never see it. What would have happened? Next one on this list, another Conor McGregor situation. What would have happened if Jose Aldo got his rematch against Conor? As everyone knows, Jose Aldo was undefeated for 10 years. Conor McGregor knocked out Jose Aldo in 13 seconds. Everybody knows the story. Conor mentally tormented Jose. Now, a lot of people think that this fight was a fluke. I honestly think that Conor's just a bad fight for Jose Aldo no matter what, bro. But I don't think he would knock him out in 13 seconds again if they rematch. So it's kind of unfair that Conor decided to immediately move up a weight class as soon as he knocked out Jose Aldo. Just kind of random. Like, he did not take the risk to give Aldo his rematch, even though he deserved it. Aldo did end up fighting for the belt. He beat Frankie Edgar. But what would have happened if he got his rematch, man? Would we have seen Aldo reclaim the belt against Conor, or would we have seen Conor cement his legacy as a great featherweight even further? So Conor versus Aldo rematch definitely needs to be mentioned. Next one we got, what would have happened if Peter Yan never threw the illegal knee on Aljamain Sterling? If you guys remember this fight, Peter Yan was dominating. Aljamain barely won one of the rounds. Peter Yan beat him for the other 3 of the rounds, was winning the end of round 4, had Aljo in this little bitch position where Aljo was on his knee, you know, basically not begging to get hit, and Peter Yan just said, fuck you, you're a little pussy, and threw a knee, hit Aljamain Sterling in the face. Ever since that moment, it's been the downfall of Peter Yan. We've seen him get ragdolled by Merab. We've seen him get robbed by O'Malley, even though I think O'Malley won. We've seen him have a very close fight with O'Malley. We saw a very close fight with Aljo in the rematch. Peter Yan, Aljamain Sterling. I mean, honestly, bro, Aljamain Sterling is considered one of the greatest bantamweights of all time. In my list is Merab is number 1. Then you put Dominic Cruz, and then you either have Yan or Sterling. But you got to put Sterling because he has the actual legitimate win over Yan, you know? Next one, and the last one on this list, what would happen if Demetrius Johnson was never traded to ONE FC? What the UFC and Demetrius Johnson had, it was very disgraceful from the UFC to trade away one of the greatest fighters of all time. They clearly wanted him gone. I think he won the Cejudo fight, and I think they robbed him because they wanted him gone from the organization. Robbed Demetrius Johnson from the Cejudo fight, sent him to ONE FC. You know, he got knocked out against Marias, ended up beating him in the trilogy, fought Rod Tang, did a lot of cool stuff at ONE. He cleared out his division of flyweights, but we never got to see him fight Brandon Moreno. We never got to see him fight Roy Val. We never got to see him fight Figueiredo. We never got to see Demetrius Johnson versus Pantoja. We never got to see Demetrius Johnson versus any of these people in the division right now that have been ruling over the division. What would have happened if Demetrius Johnson stayed in the flyweight division? Also, if they never traded Demetrius Johnson, we would have never got the rise of Jorge Masvidal. Yeah, I just would like to see what would happen, like, because, you know, we always consider DJ as one of the GOATs. What would have happened if DJ got to fight the next level of flyweights? You know, I honestly think Pantoja is a little too big for him. I do think DJ would beat, like, Moreno. I do think he'd beat Roy Val. I think he'd beat a lot of these flyweights, but I think Pantoja is just a little too big for him. But what would have happened if Demetrius Johnson never got traded to ONE FC? Probably one of the biggest what ifs of all time. And that will do it for the list. Sorry to all the TikTok fans for not bringing up their favorite fighters, Zabit Randleman. You know, Zabit Shmarashaka Beta Bigger Burger. But Zabit is not one of the greatest. I have to get this off my chest since we're talking about this shit. I want all the TikTok fans watching this to know. Watch the Calvin Kattar fight. Watch any of these fights. He loses the 3rd round. In almost all of them. He lost the 3rd round to fucking nobodies. He was losing. He gassed his out in the 3rd round. He would have got starched by Holloway, starched by Volk. He just doesn't have cardio. So yes, Zabit could throw a bunch of crazy fancy spinning shit, have some really cool submissions, but at the end of the day, he left the sport. He was on his fucking Thorfinn, Vinland Saga type shit. He was never really all that. He gassed. He had no cardio, so we have to bring that up. The other elephant in the room is why I didn't talk about Khabib versus Tony and why I didn't talk about Khabib leaving. I feel like anytime someone makes a what if list, that's always at the top. I just wanted to kind of shake it up, do some different shit. So if you enjoyed the video, like, subscribe, do all that YouTube shit. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Take it easy. Peace.